This is the Artist Loft from Michael's marker. They're kind of like Copic knockoffs, but they're pretty good. There. I'm going to be, I think, trying to color this. Starting off with a neutral gray 3, that N3. Let's see how this goes. This is not my forte, but I've already taken some photos of this, so if I screw it up, that's all right. I started using the Artist Loft series for pretty much all of my tools. I used to use microns, which are fine. I like microns. They're perfectly good. And honestly, I would keep using microns. But I switched over to the Artist Loft just because I do most of my work digitally. So it made no sense really to spend all the extra money on Copics, spend all the extra money on microns, if all I'm going to be doing is drawing digitally, coloring digitally and such. So I just stopped using name brand stuff. It's also easier to find the Artist Loft series just because it's out of Michael's. I don't have to worry about, do they have the right size? Am I getting this for a good deal or not? It's just a lot easier to do. So now I've moved on to the darkest color, that I own, the neutral gray 6. Usually you want to work from light to dark with markers. But I know this is going to be one of the darkest things in the drawing. I'm not using the best paper on this. I'm using, I think, let me check. Yeah, it's one of the Canson Mixed Media papers, which is fine for markers. They just bleed a lot. So, generally speaking, if you're going to be using markers, you want to get something that doesn't bleed as much, like Bristol or something like that. But you want something that also soaks in the marker color, so that's also the problem. As you can see, it's kind of bleeded a little bit right there. It's fine. I'm going to go back over this section right here. You can layer markers, alcohol-based markers. I'm trying to differentiate between the eyebrows and the back hair. I'm going to do the same thing with the goatee. I'm going to make it a little bit darker so it stands out. It gives that sense of depth. This is one of the reasons you want to go from light to dark, is because you layer it. If you put down the darkest color first, you can't make that any lighter. You can make it darker, which is fine, but you can't make it any lighter. I'm using the chisel edge now on my neutral gray 3 to kind of, again, add some dimension to the hair. You also have to try to figure out what you're going to keep white and what you're not, so that you can work from there. going to move on to a cool gray. I don't have too many colors, so I have to figure out exactly what I'm coloring and what color I'm coloring in. So this is the cool gray number 4. I'm going to use that for the hat. It's not as warm, hence the name, as the neutrals. So it's good for like metals, it's good for things that you don't want to appear to be warm. Now, some people leave that little edge white, so that when you go over with another color, it kind of tints it. I'm not the biggest fan of that look. Or they just keep the white edge. Not the biggest fan of that, but, you know, to each their own. I'm still learning this, so it's not like I'm an expert at this or anything. So I switched over to the brush tip. The brush tips are okay on these. Same with the chisel tips. They're fine. You can't replace them, so you have to get a whole new marker. One of the advantages of something like a Copic is that it's replaceable, it's refillable. These are much less expensive, so, you know, you take what you get. This is really good for learning. I don't feel like you should get a Copic set if you've never, if you've never done any sort of marker work before, because it's a lot of money to invest in something that you might not enjoy. Okay, so I'm moving back to that cool gray for the band right here. I know I'm going to be layering both of these with another color. So see here, I'm going to leave the white because I know I'm going back over it, and I want to have like a light spot right there and right here. So, and then every so often you just got to stop and look and figure out where you're going to go next. You want to have layers of light and dark and light, so it overlaps. So you're not just putting a bunch of dark spots together. You can draw focus. One of the reasons I made the pipe dark is for that reason, so that when you're looking at it, it draws you into the face. The whole composition, by the way, is I'm making this for a t-shirt and a sticker. So your composition, you tend to want to look where you want to figure out where the person's looking. So the pipe to the face or the hat will draw you in. You go down and around or this way. You want to like figure out where your viewer is going to be looking and kind of lead them the right way. And make a very clear silhouette as well. As you can see, it's very clear what's going on. You're not having things in front of each other that shouldn't be in front of each other. You're not having, a bad-looking silhouette. It's a very clear and concise silhouette. So that if this was all black, you could still figure out this is some guy wearing a hat holding something, right? So, I got to figure out this shirt now. I don't want to use neutral. I could go with the cool. And then I got to figure out what color this is going to be. If this is going to be a light color, it's like I'm thinking dark bands, I might want the shirt to be darker. So I'm going to go to the neutral gray, number 6. Got a little spatter right there. The ink. I will adjust. And I can always go over the black areas again after I'm done. It's to kind of make that contrast a little bit better. As you can see, I got a lot of splatter. I'm having to open these. I don't have a tripod or anything, so I'm opening the markers with my mouth like an animal. Honestly, this is just trying to relax. Okay. As you can see, I have some faint pencil marks. That's where I was going to put the bands of dark on there. I just didn't want to have a hard line, so I didn't put them in. I actually want to get right here. So after this dries, I can go over with a black marker. And now I'm going to move over to my cool gray. You know, I'm going to make that neutral gray. Originally, I was going to make the parka, what do they call it, poncho, a cool gray, similar to the hat. But I think with the bands there, I want to go with, and this right here, and I'm just looking at everything. I think I want this to be, the shirt is going to be dark. Yeah. You know, I'm second guessing that. I'm going to go with the cool gray. I could have used a chisel on this, but I'm kind of going for a looser look. I'm going to layer this a couple times, more so than the hat. I know I'm going to layer the hat, but layer this differently. Because I'm going to go over with a darker color, I don't need to do those bands right now. As you can see, it's the wizard this character I came up with a while ago. He is got a whole story going on with him. He's a wizard in a Wild West type of setting. Hence the wand that's been retrofitted into a gun. He's a wand slinger, so he is a wizard who essentially operates the same way a gunslinger would in the Wild West. Alright. I'll let that dry a little bit. One of the reasons I decided not to use the neutral gray for the poncho was because I'm going to use the neutral gray for all the leather stuff right here. I can use this dark gray for the shirt. See what I should have done, and as I'm learning, so I should have did all of that color first, the leather and stuff, so that if I go over this, it won't stand out as much. I'm really hoping all of my rambling is making sense. So I'm really having to take into account the bleeding of the paper. So sometimes you just dab in places instead of full on paint, like brush it on. As you can see, I just kind of do these points, see how it's bleeding in. All right. You can see as it dries, there's more contrast between the black and the gray. So that's good. That's kind of what I'm going for. There's more contrast. So now I'm going to go to this neutral gray that I used on the mustache and on the beard and everything. And all of this stuff. I'm going to do in that color. I have one other color that left I haven't used yet. It's called Blue Haze. It's a really old marker, so it doesn't really work very well. So I don't want to use it on anything quite yet. Okay. So, see this little interior part? I'm going to use this right here so you can see his shirt on the inside. Okay, now this thing really comes down to, so when you're trying to decide colors for things, you have to figure out like what, especially like this right here. I want contrasting colors. So I know the hardware is going to be a certain color. I see his hand's going to be white. The wand is the major part. So do I make the wand this dark color? Do I make this wand a neutral color and then put some cool colors for the metal? I got these other bits right here. I think I'm going to go with a neutral color, a neutral gray 6 for this main part. And then I'll use the cool gray for some of the hardware. And then I've got the darker neutral gray 6 that I'll use for some accents right here on the hardware. And then I've got that Blue Haze that I'm going to use for that one. Part of the reason I'm telling you is that I remember what I'm doing. This is where you really want to, this wand right here is where you really want to use your layering. All right, so move to the cool. I need to get new markers. As you can see, they're starting to dry out for a number of reasons. Quite old. I got them a while ago and I just haven't really done any marker work. Alright, so that's going to be Blue Haze. That's going to make that trigger stand out. Make this cool right here. Almost everything I've learned about marker work has been from places on YouTube. I would recommend people like Todd Knock. who is mostly known as, he did Young Justice over at DC. He's done he does a lot of Marvel cover work. He's done some Marvel Deadpool and Spider-Man work as well. He's working on a Gwen Stacy. Working on a Gwen Stacy story before COVID hit. But he does a lot of marker work, and that's where I learned a lot of this. And then just odd people here and there. No one else is coming to mind with gray marker tones, but, you know, you watch a YouTube channel and you pick something up. So this is the blue Haze. V4, I don't know what that means, but it's the one that is sort of like a warmer gray color. And it's just kind of, it looks okay. The tip is really kind of dead. So I'm doing the very cool, very classic Kirby dots right here. Kirby dots are something that, as the name implies, Jack Kirby came up with. He needed to show energy, like burst in comics, and just kind of created these dots as a shorthand. I think he used Q-tips for his. It's a really easy way to do a shorthand visual of magic or energy stuff. As you can see, I need my second cup of coffee, my third cup of coffee. It's a really easy shorthand to do. Just do little dots, little circles, and it look, oh wow, look, there's magic. Alright, so I'm going to use that blue haze on these, couple of this hardware right here. On these magic vials. But it's not a very good marker, so I'm not using it for much. Okay, so I know this is neutral gray right here. That's cool gray right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over it and layer some more. I like that white edge right there, actually. But the rest of it, I'm going to go through. And when you do this layering, you have to intend to go over the entire thing. Otherwise, where it layers, it's going to be darker. So it's like very important. If you don't want it to look too splotchy. So anywhere that I had marker, it's going to be darker than the layer that I just put on. And you can wait for it to dry again and layer it up again. After a while, it stops layering as much. It won't get any darker, I've noticed. So that's something that you just need to plan ahead. I'm going to go back on to this. Go back to this wand and add some more neutral gray to kind of layer the wand. Give it some depth. I need to get this part, this hardware. The tips I heard on these are not as good as the Copics. I have very little experience with Copics, so I can't say either way. But these tips do tend to get pretty gnarly. As you can see, I don't use these markers much, and they get pretty gnarly. I'm gonna go back onto here. Using a different neutral gray. I'm using a neutral gray 3 instead of the 6 just to get that edge right there. Let's see. I'm gonna get these stripes in. You know what? I need to make sure that's dry first. So I'm actually gonna go over the hat one last time in a cool gray. So right here, for example. Boom. Really enjoy how organic marker work looks in most traditional works. I really like how it looks, but my nervousness at not being able to undo is something that terrifies me, which is funny because I used to do traditional work. I didn't do digital work. I've colored digitally, but for the most part, all my work has been neutral. Traditional. Sorry, I'm thinking about doing the colors, the neutral grays right here. So all of my work typically have been traditional. So it's really weird that I get freaked out. So I was trying something right here and just see how it's going to turn out. So I'm leaving a little bit of the edge right there to kind of show an edge. I was trying to use the neutral gray 3 to kind of cover up that little dot, right, that little splatter, and it didn't quite work. So I am going to go back over with the 6 and try to fix that. But I do like how that looks. So what I'm going to do actually is just go over hopefully this turns out looking okay. Every other stripe. perfect, but, you know, nothing ever is. I think I'm going to go over with the blue haze. Kind of clean up some of these white spots I have. Just go over it so it stands out a little bit less. All right, I think that's it. We'll see how it dries. Thanks, everyone. Catch you later.